when you see this image, you feel like, oh, this is really easy. Let me just pick my brush tool and then just paint out the white areas and then remove the text and then just start editing. But where you see that you fucked up is when you get to the shadowy area and then you see that everything still gets really bright. So in this tutorial, we will be doing a totally different thing. We will be using the clone tool to make sure that the texture of the paper is still the same thing with what we are trying to replace on the text. And I also teach you how you can be non-destructive with your text, in the sense that you can easily change the text later and then you still have the effect of the paper on it, like you have the noisy part of the paper on the text, and all you need to do is just to change this later in the future. So if that sounds really cool to you, just go, let's go right into the video. Now the first thing you do with this kind of image is to first duplicate the layer. The image used here is right in the description below in case you want to follow this video step by step. And then you come here into the clone stamp tool and then you pick the clone stamp tool, not the pattern stamp tool, and then you try to reduce the size of your clone stamp tool, reduce it to something really small, and then you make sure the hardness is at 0%. And when it's already at 0%, that means you are good to go. If you make the hardness really thick, you see that whenever you start cloning it, you see that it will be the edges will be too rough. So the edges are not meant to be solid, it's meant to be really soft. So when you get that out of the way, then you start cloning it. Now the best way to clone this kind of image is to just pick somewhere at the top of the text. Don't make it too far away from the text and don't make it too near. So just like somewhere in between on the top of the text, and then you keep cloning it on the text itself. So you can hold your alt key to pick the clone tool. So and then you start cloning it. And then when you get to all these add parts, you can just easily change your clone selection. Like you hold alt and then you pick it from the side instead of picking it from the top this time around, so that everything will look a lot more smoother. And then the tricky part of this editing is the shadowy area. I intentionally picked this picture because of that shadowy area. I know it will be really tough for new users to just keep doing that shadowy area. So the best way is to just calm down and then try to reduce the size of your brush and then copy the shadow and then see the edges of the shadow and try to make it as perfect as you can. Try to make sure you are picking the right part of the shadow so that it won't be too dark or too light for you. And then when we are done with that, you see that the overall image still has this kind of feeling of like the clone stamp tool is not really perfect. So the best way the way I used to do this is to just increase the size of my clone tool and then try to clone stamp a very large area of the image, and then just do it like a finishing touch. Like you just pick a really big part of the image and then you just start cloning it on it. Now that we see that we are done with the cloning, now we have a good perfect transparent, a good perfect empty paper. Now the next thing is to just type in our text. Now our text here is AGI. I just want to test this with AGI because you can still change it later. So you first start with adjusting the feel of the text. Like most times texts don't usually come out as 100% when snapping it. Like you might think that the ink is black ink and then you think that you just type it on it and then you find out that the text is too thick, like the darkness is too much. So you try your best to reduce the feel. and you come here into blur, add some guassiam blur to it. I mostly just stay between 0.3 or 0.4 for my guassiam blur, just to make the edges a little bit soft, so that the text will not be too harsh on the edges. And then you add some noise, and then the noise I usually use is not more than 3 to 4 percentage too, so that it will look like the paper behind is actually reflecting on the text, and you see that it's looking a lot more realistic with the noise effects added to it whenever you zoom in. So when we are done with that, the advantage of making the text a smart object and not a rasterized layer is because whenever you click on the smart object thumbnail, it will just automatically take you to a PSB file that whenever you change the text there, it will automatically show in your image without you having to change anything. So that's the end of the tutorial for today. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end, and if you love this video, I would really appreciate if you can like and subscribe to this channel, or share it to someone that you think really likes content like this. Thank you so much.